There's an old Norse saying that people only stop exploring the world after they take an arrow to the knee. But what if that arrow does not come from an archer? Most people assume knee problems start in the knee. But during our investigation, we found something unexpected. If you've ever felt that stiffness when you stand, that quiet resistance in your knees, you already know the feeling. It often starts small. You move a little slower getting up. You take the stairs a bit more carefully, and step by step, something begins to change. For many people, this is where it begins, but most never stop to ask one simple question: why? So we started asking a simple question. Why does this begin for so many people after 40? Not just athletes, not just injuries, but ordinary active people who suddenly notice something has changed. We looked at the usual explanations: wear and tear, age, overuse. But the deeper we looked, the less complete those answers felt. Because in many cases, the discomfort did not seem to start at the bone. It started somewhere else. In other words, the arrow was never the real enemy. What we were really looking at was something much smaller and much harder to see. Inside every joint, there is a thin fluid called synovial fluid. It works like natural lubrication, helping the joint move smoothly. When that fluid is present and flowing well, movement feels easier. But over time, that support can begin to fade. And when it does, the joint has to work harder. That is when friction begins to build. And when friction builds over time, you start to feel it. Stiffness, pressure, discomfort, especially when you stand, bend, or take those first few steps. Maybe that is the real story. Not the arrow, the joint. At this point, most people try to deal with the discomfort in the most obvious ways. They reach for quick relief, painkillers, topical creams, braces, and while some of these can help temporarily, they do not address what is happening inside the joint. They do not restore lubrication. It is like covering a warning light on a dashboard. The signal disappears, but the problem is still there, and over time, it usually gets worse. After looking at the problem from every angle, one thing kept standing out. A particular ingredient kept appearing again and again in the research, not as a miracle, not as a quick fix, but as something that may help support the joint environment itself. That changed the direction of the investigation, because once we saw that pattern, the next question became simple. What if the answer was not about forcing the joint to work harder? What if it was about helping the joint move more naturally? That is what led to the next step, looking for a way to support that environment more directly. That is when we came across a formulation called joint genesis. It was not created to mask discomfort. It was designed to support the natural processes inside the joint, the same processes we have been looking at. The goal was simple: support lubrication, support movement, and support the joint in a more natural way. What that can mean in daily life is simple: getting up with a little more ease, taking the stairs with a little more confidence, moving through the day with less hesitation, not because everything has changed overnight, but because the joint is being supported in a way that feels more natural. And that is where the difference begins to show. And what makes it different is how simple it is to use. It's just a simple supplement, just a daily capsule taken as part of a normal routine. So it is not really about the arrow. It is about what the joint means to your day, how you stand, how you move, how freely you can take the next step. And when that starts to feel supported again, even in a small way, the whole day can feel different, more steady, more natural, more like yourself. But this is only part of what we found. There is a reason this approach started gaining attention, and it has to do with what happens inside the joint over time. That is not something most people ever get to see explained clearly. If you want to take a closer look at how this works, you can continue just below. that is where the full explanation is laid out. At the end of the day, the choice is simple. You can keep guessing, or you can take a closer look at the full explanation below. Everything is laid out clearly. It's a simple supplement designed to support the joint environment over time, so you can decide for yourself.